and welcome back to the review realm, and today we are going to be discussing Ryan Coogler's newest film, which is called Sinners, and of course it wouldn't be a Ryan Coogler film without Michael B. Jordan starring in it, and hey, I ain't complaining that he's in all Ryan Coogler's films, but it also does star Hailee Steinfeld, which is exciting, and this review will be split up into a non-spoiler section and then a spoiler section, so I will let you know when that spoiler section is occurring, so don't worry, I am doing my best to avoid all spoilers at all costs, okay? Now, in my non-spoiler section, the only information that I am going to reveal is going to be information that can be found in the trailer and on the brief synopsis if you just look up what this film's about, so nothing major, just a very basic plot overview, okay? So don't come at me, okay? I'm warning you now that I will have some information, but it's not going to be groundbreaking or things you wouldn't have discovered if you watched the trailer. Now, before we get to our review, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So let's get to it. So Michael B. Jordan stars as two characters. This is a dual role for him. He is playing Smoke and Stack, and they are identical twins, and they have been in the military, they've been around, been to Chicago, and this does take place in 1932 in Mississippi. So they're coming back to their hometown in Mississippi and they want to start a juke joint. So this is them trying to start it, and this whole film takes place in 24 hours. So it's not like you are learning a ton about them. You're only learning that is relevant for this 24 hours, but the way this plot works, it's really interesting. The first part of the movie, they definitely are just giving you the information that you need to understand the second half, and really it's a pitch for why should the audience care about these people, and also why do the characters care about one another. So it really does, in that first part, give you a lot of information. So the first part can definitely feel like a slow burn just because they're throwing all this information. Why does this person like this person? Why does that person hate this person? That's basically the first half of the film. And then you get into the second half of the film and there are vampires. Now, from watching the trailers, you would not really, you'd be like, what is that? Like a monster type thing? But it is vampires. And when you read the brief synopsis, it says vampires. So that's fun and exciting. And now, I would be lying if I said I haven't watched a lot of things that do involve vampires now. Sadly, they do not shimmer in the sun. They do actually burn in the sun. So it does follow what you would typically think the rules are for vampires. They have to be invited in. You can kill them with a stake to the heart. They don't like garlic. There's certain things like that this film is truthful to. Now, blues music does take a very prominent role in this film. So music in general. So if you do not like music at all, and don't want to watch people sing on a TV, this is not the film for you. I'm gonna just say that right now. Music is a big part of the plot and the characters. It's important to this film. So if you don't like that, then maybe this isn't the film for you. Now, this is a horror film. Of course, in horror films, there are some lead-ups. You're like, oh gosh, something scary is gonna happen. And then it happens and you're like, okay, I survived. And then it repeats the same. So it does have some scary horror snippets, I would say. It's really not as scary as I thought it'd be. Honestly, I was prepared for, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be shaking in my seat, popcorn's gonna go flying because I'm so scared, but it wasn't like that, which honestly was refreshing because it allowed you to take in other parts of the film just besides being scared. Now, since this is set in 1932 in Mississippi, the Jim Crow laws were definitely around. You definitely see that segregation and the racism, and they do it in a really awesome way, I would say. The way they show it, the segregation especially, I thought was really well done, so kudos to them. So Michael B. Jordan does play two roles, Smoke and Stack, and they are identical twins. Now, the way that they show this in the film is one of them is wearing a red hat, one of them's wearing a blue hat, one of them's wearing a tie, one of them is not wearing a tie. So definitely within the costumes, you can tell, okay, there is a difference. Now, typically with dual roles, you might see where they really contrast. One might be really loud, really outgoing, while the other one's really timid and really shy, but this is not the case for the film Sinners. Michael B. Jordan does subtle differences in his performance when he is playing either Smoke or when he's playing Stack, but you can tell who he is playing in that moment. Yes, of course, there's a costume, so there's an outward reflection of it, but there's also in his movements, the way he talks. Like, oh, you could tell that they were actually siblings. There's not this big contrast to really help the audience, but it's subtle. In his performance, he kills it. I'm just gonna say, Michael B. Jordan, like, of course you would expect that from him, but he kills it. When playing dual roles, it's hard because you're going take to take, you might be a different person one time, so you might see some similarities, and yes, the similarities are there, but it's because they are brothers, and you can really tell that these two are brothers, that there are some similarities, but there's also these really big differences as well. So in the performance, he just killed it, and I could tell who was who when. Of course, obviously, there is clothing that differentiates them, but also in his performance. So Michael B. Jordan did a really good job. And the supporting cast also killed it. They did a really good job. Now, Hailee Steinfeld, the one thing, so of course they're in the South, so you're going to hear a Southern accent. Now, there are some parts where she sort of breaks it, and it's like for a quick like millisecond. You would only catch it if you're really paying attention, but I did notice that. I was like, oh, she's doing so well, like good Southern, and then it's like, oh, she broke it. But then she goes right back into it, so then you're like, okay. But she does do a good job, and the supporting cast, they are in this film. They do give, it almost feels like equal screen time to every single character, which makes you feel like, I should care about this person, or I should not care about this person. So that is nice and refreshing. It's not like you're just one person and then there's just like these random Joe Bobs in the background. No, they really do take time to develop these characters, so you somewhat care about them throughout the film. So the setting does take place in Mississippi in 1932, and the set design was awesome. They did a really good job. Like, the costume designer, the set designer, the music, the score, they killed it. I'm just gonna say, I actually really enjoyed this film, and I would recommend it even if you aren't necessarily a horror fan. Yes, there's some scary parts in this film, but it's really nothing crazy. It is a very enjoyable film. It does run around 2 hours and 17 minutes, so it is on the longer side, but honestly, you may feel that in the beginning, but towards like the middle to the end, the time flies by, so it doesn't feel crazy long. I wasn't like staring at my watch like, oh my gosh, is this movie gonna be over? I did actually enjoy this film. I would definitely recommend it. And if you want a little spookiness, then this film will also float your boat, because there is some of that. Alright, I am now getting into my spoiler section, so leave now or forever hold your peace, okay? Because I will get into spoilers, so leave if you don't want any spoilers, okay? I'll give you 1 second. Okay. Now, hopefully they're all gone. Now, the spoiler section for this film. And I do want to go back on some of the points that I did make in my non-spoiler section, just so I can sort of flesh them out and involve spoilers. So there is a scene where you see like this little town, a little main street, and half of the side you can tell is for whites only, and the other side is for like blacks only. So you can really tell that in where they do it. So there's a little shop, it's owned by this family who are Chinese, and the daughter ends up walking to the other side of the street where there's another shop, which the mom is running and the dad's running the one on the blacks only side. So you see her walk across on both sides of the street, and you can tell the difference. So the way they did this set, the way they had the extras in this film, the way people were dressed, they really did flesh out that there's segregation in this time. Like, this is accurate to 1932, so it's not just like shoved in your face. They do it very subtly, which I thought was a great move. So whoever was in charge of that, great job, you killed it. I was like, that was a really interesting way of doing it. So one of the twins, Michael B. Jordan, who he is playing Smoker Stack, honestly, I'm really bad with names, so the one in the blue hat, okay? He is in love with this woman. It seems like voodoo to me. I don't know what you would necessarily call it, but she's definitely, I guess, spirit sensitive is what I would say. And so she can make, I guess, like your potions, or she knows about vampires, and they had a child together, and something happens and the child's dead, so you see him bringing flowers when he comes back to Mississippi. And at the end of the film, when he is about to die, well, you can tell he sees her in white, well, one white being representing very pure, and we saw her die earlier in the film. I thought that was a great choice to change her clothing and also have the kid, because it's showing like he is dying, okay, and he is about to join his family that was mentioned earlier in the film, and me and my sister were having a conversation about this point specifically in the film, because it was like, why was it doing it? Like, why wouldn't you just show him like bleeding out and dying? But it was like a very peaceful transition. When all the other film, there's chaos, there's blood, there's death, like a lot of blood, like people are just soaked in it. Like, I get they're vampires, but oh my gosh. And I thought this was a very subtle way of bringing him into the afterlife, showing the audience that he is dying. And I really loved that part in the film. I was like, wow, like it's just a very contrast, you know. It's not like he's dying from a vampire bite, he just is dying because he got shot. So I did like that part, and that happened at the very end of the film. Now basically everyone dies in this film, only one person survives, so there's that. It's all fun and exciting. When you get to the point where the vampires are knocking at the door, so they're at their it's their opening day for their junk joint, and these white folks come up, and now the guy who played the main vampire, creepy as snickerdoodles. Okay, I would believe like that guy is an axe murderer. Like, I'd be like, no, 6 feet, please. Okay, I believe him. He was creepy. I was like, oh my gosh, we're about to get some really creepy stuff. And you just knew. So I like how they subtly introduce that it's vampires. It's not like, I'm a vampire, blah, blah, blah. But it's them trying to trick them to get in. Like, can you invite us in? We just want to come in. Please invite us. And you can tell, and especially with some of the other vampires, as more people get turned into vampires, I really liked how they were trying to trick them to letting them in. Now, what happens is the Chinese lady who is there, who was serving different alcohol drinks to everyone at the bar, she owned the convenience store. Her husband goes out and gets the car, and he ends up turning into a vampire. Now, you can tell like they're madly in love with each other, and then once you get turned into a vampire, all the vampires know everything. And so her husband knew that their daughter was home alone and basically threatens her like, I'm gonna go kill your daughter if you don't let me in. And she loses it. She acts like any mother would do. Like, I need to go save my daughter. I need to go out, blah, blah, blah. She's ready to fight, like kick down some doors. She's like, you ain't touching my kid. And like, you already like killed my husband. So you can feel her mourning in that initial grief. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then she ends up letting all the vampires in because she just wants to kill them all. So she's like flying with stakes. She ends up dying in the process, but she ends up dying killing her husband. So releasing his soul, right? They need to kill him to basically release their soul. Now, Michael B. Jordan, the other twin, the one who's wearing a red hat, who was in love with Hailee Steinfeld's character, he ends up getting turned into a vampire. Now, his death scene, Michael B. Jordan crying about Michael B. Jordan dying, I was like, oh my gosh, he did a really good job. Like, you could tell, like, these brothers, they're twins, they haven't been separated. If one does something, the other does something. They're willing to die and fight for each other. And I was like, it was just a really good performance in that scene, and it was an emotional scene. Now they're like, we need to get his body outside the door, but he's like, no, like, this is my brother, like, I'm not moving his body outside, his body isn't moving. And then he ends up turning into a vampire. Michael B. Jordan doing a vampire, I believe, like, he got turned into a vampire, his movements, and then you'd see him again when he was playing the other twin who was human, and you were like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. And again, this whole film takes place in just 24 hours, which I really liked, because it wasn't like, oh, these vampires have been haunting. No, they just show up one day and it's like, okay, now we got to deal with them. Now, of course, they do end up killing it, but I do want to talk about the vampires and how they were designed. Whoever did the teeth, I was like, this was some of the best vampire teeth I've ever seen. Okay, I've watched a lot of I've watched shows, I've watched movies that involve vampires. They killed it with the teeth. And then with the fingers, they grew them like twice as long nails, almost like claws. Like, oh my gosh. Like, it was, whoever did the design for the vampires killed it. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. Now, the vampires and their movements. I do wish there was just more killing, more brutal, like a little more something, not just like one big fight scene. I wish it was sprinkled throughout the whole film as well. Like, I understand we need that exposition and why we should care about these characters, but they could have added more scary moments in it, but it's nothing crazy. I still really enjoyed this film. Now, the vampires, the scariest part was when they would jump, and they had like these huge jumps, but then it's almost like they just cut it. You went to the next scene, and it was like, oh my gosh, how did this end? So I wish they would have almost given us something a little more after that jump, because that jump was so, I was like, oh gosh, like, oh, it was like a huge jump, okay? It was terrifying. I was like, oh. No, the film wasn't that scary, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I think Michael B. Jordan had a great performance. I think the creative choices they did were also really important to the plot and made a lot of sense. So I actually enjoyed this film, and I think if you're a fan of horror or just wants like Michael B. Jordan, you would probably really like this film. So I would definitely recommend it to others. But that is just my thoughts. Thanks for listening this long, and let me know yours down in the comment section down below, and have a great day. Bye!